So, Ross, you and I have spent a good chunk of time recently researching and sharing insight on how to improve an individual's performance. Me with my kind of Carl Learns How to Learn series, and you with your playbook and kind of associated content on how to win in the careerverse. Um, and so I'd like to kind of focus in on one area in particular. We're kind of both covering in a way, and that is personal development planning. I want to know why you think it's important, and more importantly, how to become better at it.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think I know really after loads of experience through the years I think getting better at career development it's not a hack or anything, right? I think a lot of people you see online, it's like hack your career or get these secrets or whatnot. But a lot of it is through experience. A lot of it is through knowing the right tools. And what I mean by that and knowing the right tools is there's so many tools that's available for us to use in this kind of day and age and even more. But it's really looking at, in terms of your career development, what are the kind of main 4 to 5 tools that you can use throughout your career as a bit of this kind of blueprint to help you accelerate, no matter what you're doing at any stage of that kind of career. So I think it's really important in focusing on those components and then adding them into whatever it is that you're going to do in your career and go on from there. I mean, those 4 tools in particular are, I would say, your skills, and I can kind of delve into these as we go on, your career currency, your network, and your support systems. And I really feel like with career development, if you have those 4 things, you can really continue to do kind of well in any kind of field that you're in if you continue to invest in them. But I think as humans, we kind of try to make things too complicated instead of really simple and just focus on the basics, and the basics really do take you far in that. So I've gone off a tangent there a little bit from the career development piece, but I mean, hopefully that gives you kind of a bit of an intro answer to why that's important and how people can continue to improve.
And that's interesting because I'd like to dig into one
Mm,
of those areas, and particularly around skills. They're kind of what kind of transversal skills do you think
mm,
are important for people to have? What kind of employers looking for? I've got the
mm.
personal development plan maybe in place, and
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I know the kind of stuff that I might need for my role, but how do I make myself more agile, more flexible as an employee, and more valuable almost to the organization?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's hard, right? It is hard to identify kind of across the board. I mean, I can do my best. So there's always going to be components, as we all know, is the most human skills. If we look at the things that take us far, and one of the things I've always done in kind of my research, and I've found a lot of synergy, is that it really is less about technical skills of people, but it's about the people who can bring that package together in terms of the way they can engage an audience. So storytelling is something that's incredibly powerful in all forms. So when I talk about storytelling, people think about presenting, but it's not true. It might be storytelling in audio format like we're doing here. It might be when you're writing an email or a Slack message or getting people to buy into your business case. Storytelling is something that really does set people apart in an organization. You can probably put it under communication, right? But storytelling sounds a lot more sexier than saying communication. But it's all part of that puzzle in terms of how can you elevate the things you know and bring people into that journey and along that ride with you. And then there's other pieces where, we'll know from an L&D perspective, I always talk about, keeping that curiosity and that motivation. And I think what separates people apart, like I've seen quite often, is the concept of growth mindset, which I think, Carol Dweck's work is probably the biggest in that space, is then looking at how do you continue to cultivate that? Because when you look at people at all different career levels, I think what separates them most of the time is that the people who go far are usually the people that are really open to be proven wrong. And they're really open to be like, I don't know this yet. And it's a very powerful statement in terms of yet, and the willingness to learn, and what you've spoken about previously, and learning how to learn, and really as much as possible. For some of us, it's very natural, right? Like, I think we're both individuals who are very naturally very curious and very motivated. Some people have to work it, and you do have to do that as part of a skill to say, especially in our ever-changing world of technology, how do I keep up to date with everything that's emerging? And how do I use that for my own advantage? Because I think what you want to do is with that growth mindset is then look at how can I create my own career advantages. And I think a prime example of that now is everyone's going crazy about AI tools as an example. There's a lot of fear from people, but there's a group of people who I think are probably the more smaller ones at the moment who are saying, how do I get ahead of this curve? How do I understand how this stuff works? How I can apply it to maximize my career with the company that I'm at? Those are the people essentially for me that will win and do a lot. So, storytelling, having that curiosity, the ability to kind of bring people with you, bring people together and to collaborate. I think definitely so. Now we talk about AI tools coming around. I think that having that whole point of collaboration, those kind of basic things, which funny enough, everyone talks about, are really kind of the key things that people need in an organization to really stand out. Because I think about this all the time, even in my own field, where there are probably millions of people who do what I do in terms of technical qualifications and accreditations and experience. But in order to separate yourself and stand out from that, you have to over index in certain things to allow you to be the best in those components. And in a world where there's like 8 billion humans now, pretty much, and there's, I don't know, 5 billion people connected to the internet and billions in the kind of industry, you have to stand out a bit more. And I think focusing on those key skills will take you further than just saying, I'm great technically at this, but I can't tell stories. I can't engage with people. I haven't got the curiosity to learn more. I mean, you've probably experienced as well. The amount of people I talk to sometimes, and they're just like, "Oh no, I've gone to university, done my education. I don't have to learn anymore." And I'm just like, "Well, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in years to come." So I think having those components, they have synergies across any career, and they are things that you can take. Doesn't matter what you do, that you can use, that are easily accessible. And if you invest in them, the opportunities that can open up for you, are very vast.
You kind of, when it comes to personal development,
Mm-hmm.
what are kind of some of the key steps? What are kind of the things you should be doing to kind of push personal development forward for yourself?
Oh yeah, great question. So, like, I think the first thing is have a plan. I think, we're recording this mid to end of January, and I think most resolutions have probably fallen apart from the year already. And it's an old kind of adage that people say, but dreams are kind of wishes without a plan, pretty much. And I'm a really big building systems guy. I don't really rely too much on motivation or feeling in the mood to do stuff. It's building the systems to get to where you want to be. And a career development plan really is a system. It's a system of you saying, these are the things I want to do. These are the ways that I can achieve them. And this is the time frame that I want to do it in. And I'm going to measure my success by X, Y, and Z. And the actual ability to do that, or time to do that, that may be a couple of hours, one Sunday afternoon, it takes you to do that. But then that's something that you can refer back to and use for the rest of the year. You can iterate, you can flow with, but you need to have a structure in place for any kind of career development, because you don't want to be one of those people who's saying the same thing year in, year out. I want to do this, or I want to get this promotion, I want to move to this industry. So the first thing is to really put some structure into your life and get that clarity of, sitting down, having that reflection time, really thinking about, and this is not a 5-year plan. This is not one of those things where people go crazy about, look 5 years in the future. I mean, no one knows what's going to happen in 5 months, let alone 5 years. But, look to the immediate and say, what are the things that I can do to reach my goal, whatever that may be? And, really defining that goal might be reverse engineering. You might say, as an example, I want to be a chief learning officer or something in 20 years. How do I reverse engineer from that to where I am today? And what are the things that I know right now that I can really double down on to help me get there in the next year? So it's kind of part of, how do I look at this as a infinite game and not play by finite tactics? So how do I not do stuff for short-term instant gratification, but how do I build a career development plan to do that? So the CDP is definitely the number one bit, or you don't have to be CDP. It can be something in your journal. There has to be a plan for you to structure and go back to, and it gives you accountability. And there's also a lovely responsibility kind of piece in there as well, where I think the best piece of advice I can share with people is share that with other people, because you will feel a hell of a lot more accountable if you start walking around and saying, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z by the end of the year, because you'll feel like a fool if you haven't done it and you've spent the first few months of the year telling everyone, I'm going to do this. So CDP is definitely one. And I think some of the components that I've touched upon is really looking at some of those tools that I described with. So you've got your CDP, that will invest in your skill set, which is great. It's usually skills focused. But what you also want to do is focus on what I call your career currency. So that is continuing to build your experience in your industry. So that may be length of service in your role, but it's also looking at your credibility in the industry. So how can you add to maybe parts of your industry? How can you get more involved in your industry to build out your credibility? Because that's brand, right? And you can use brand quite easily to move around. Although I hate the saying, it is kind of more about who you know than what you know sometimes. So if you're able to do that and build your own career advantage, definitely do that. And that ties in very closely with your network as well. Again, I'm not a lover of it myself, but networks are really where it does happen. If you can build out networks, you can build out communities of people that can help you and you can help them. And there's that kind of common coming together and helping you in your career. That is all something that's going to connect into this idea of a career development plan, of skills, of this career currency and your network there. And I think the last one is, I think, support infrastructure. And what I mean by that is, and this is probably going to be contentious to some people, is in your personal life. So it's kind of more around, personal relationships with friends, with your partner, with family around. Do you have an environment that helps you thrive in your career? Because I always think that these are the components that not everyone considers. They just think a career is like, I just need some skills, I need some experience. But you can only do those things really well if you have a supportive environment outside your world that allows you to really invest in those pieces and potentially take risks and do other bits. So I don't think it's spoken about a lot, but I think that support network of, who your partner is, are they got the right infrastructure around you? Your friends, are they the right friends you want to be around? Have you the right mindset to achieve what you want to achieve? All these kind of little details add up to you being successful, and whatever that is. And I should say, look, success is not about getting to the C-suite level and trying to win all this. It is whatever you want to do. And it's just about using those tools and having a really clear plan in, where do I want to go? And I'd finish off in saying that if you don't have a plan, someone will make one for you. And you don't want that to happen. You want to be in control of it yourself. So I would definitely say, look, put something together.
So, like in summary, there, it's big focus on planning, stops
Mm,
procrastination as
mm,
well. Give back to your industry, build out networks,
yeah.
and really get that environment sorted, that kind of support structure around you. And then I think in that, then what you've got, I think you kind of allude to this, that if you make time for this,
Mm.
you can start to become kind of the best version of you. I think you said that's cheesy, but it's right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And time is the thing, but you have to think about these things will take time, but it's very low level of time. You have to think it's the whole kind of 80-20 principle. You're effectively saying you're using that kind of 20% to get the 80% impact coming back for you. And that's what you're doing there with a plan. Otherwise, you kind of just get in these, and I see it all the time in companies that I worked with and people that I've kind of coached, where they get in these vicious cycles of just hitting the same bottleneck again and again and again because they just didn't spend that one afternoon putting together a bit of a plan. They suffer for probably hundreds, thousands of hours across a spectrum to actually get somewhere.
Yeah, when I talk about my own kind of planning when it comes
Mm,
to um, when I go into periods of deep learning,
mm,
I would say without, look, I'd rather go and do the washing up most
mm.
days than sit down and have to study some of the things that I'm trying to get my head around. I'm immersing myself in things like neuroscience. And
Mm,
but that planning is almost like, all right, we're going to go and do that now. And I found, and then I make that time.
yeah.
And it will kind of, the pieces just start coming together that little bit better.